Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Good morning. You're looking live at PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. We appreciate you joining us today. I want to thank David Steele for our introduction. It's Thursday. You know what that means. We'll have our college football analyst, Brent Beaird. See who he's got up for his Heisman Trophy right now, since he's a voter as well. And we'll also have Marvelous Marty Pallman from the prepzone.com give us an update of what's going on in volleyball and football, high school sports in the Northeast Florida. Well, pretty much the entire state. Let's head to the Titan MR hotline, and we're joined by our college football analyst, Brent Beaird. Good morning, Brent. How you doing, my man?
Well, I'm doing well. Hard not to be excited about college football this weekend with the incredible amount of games that we have got. Got a couple tonight and got a handful tomorrow night. So, but it is, we've got 6 ranked matchups this weekend. That is the first time we've had that many since 2006, Shane, when we had 7 of them. So, needless to say, it's a big weekend. Yes. Yep. Well, want to let folks know that as far as games tonight, we've got Georgia State at Coastal Carolina, Arkansas Pine Bluff, and Alabama A&M. Those games are on ESPN, ESPNU. And we've got tomorrow night, Wisconsin at Purdue, Brown at Harvard. How about that, an Ivy League game on a Friday night? NC State at Virginia, which obviously is an ACC matchup. Boise State at San Diego State, and then Air Force at San Jose State. So we got, and both those games are at 10:30. So if you want a little late watching, you can certainly enjoy that. Games this week of note, and boy, there are a bunch of them that are really tremendous. Obviously, Ohio State, Notre Dame, 2 top 10 teams. Lead off Alabama and Ole Miss, 2 teams that are going in opposite directions right now. UCLA and Utah, which is a nice game within itself. Iowa at Penn State, obviously Florida State, Clemson, the headliner in the ACC, and certainly one of the headliners in the nation, Arkansas versus LSU, Texas and Baylor, North Carolina at Pitt, Memphis at Missouri, which is an intriguing game within itself too. Auburn at Texas A&M. So Auburn will be challenged for one of the first times at this point too. So TC, and we've got Wisconsin and Purdue. So it's a nice weekend of ball, to say the least. 6 ranked.
I'm back, Brent. I'm back, Brent. I'm back. You know, to hell with Cox, man. I've had enough with them. Unfortunately, I called yesterday raising hell about them. The problem is to have somebody come out and look at it and all that. I'm never home, so
Yeah.
I don't know what we're going to figure out, but we'll figure it out anyway. Greg wants to know, how is Georgia playing UAB in week 4? I mean, they are. There's nothing we can do about it. Their schedule ain't real difficult. Brent, I wanted to get your thoughts, and I don't know if you saw on Twitter or what have you, but, a few years ago, Matt Campbell at Iowa State was one of the hot commodities. Mm-hmm. He decided to stay, and now they lose to Ohio at home. They're not very good. I don't think they've ever won 10 games in the history of their school. And they ain't going to do it this year. But don't you think that's just interesting, where he was one of the hottest coaches on the market, and now they're terrible.
Oh yeah, yeah. And unfortunately, the stock in coaches rises and it falls, and Matt Campbell is a example of that. I mean, I still think Matt Campbell's a pretty good football coach, but as Shane said, they're among a handful of schools who have never won any more than 9 games in their history. I don't mean lately, in their history. He reminds me, and I'll bring this kind of full circle here, he reminds me of Will Healy, who used to be at Charlotte, who the Gators play this weekend. Healy was, for a short period of time, the flavor of the month in coaches. He won at Austin Peay. Did a great job there. Did a great job at Charlotte in his first 2 years, and then things just fell off. So that's unfortunate. But to your point, that's also kind of a comparison about what's happened at Iowa State with Campbell.
Yeah, I'm kind of jumping all over the place here, but obviously one of the bigger games, we'll talk about it a little bit, Clemson and Florida State. I saw a note, and I don't know if it was correct or not, but Clemson's got the 8th ranked defense in America, and Florida State's defense is in the 100s. Did you see that, Brent, or was that printed wrong?
Well, and I know Clemson is rated that high. Well, I tell you what happened probably with Florida State. The problem with that is in last week's game at Boston College, Florida State's defense really struggled. They particularly struggle in the secondary. So hopefully they will get a lot of that fixed this week. But look, Clemson's front 7, about half of those guys could be in the NFL right now. So no, I think that's what happened, Shane, is basically that. And again, we've only got 3 games to go by, and if you have a bad game in those 3, that really puts you down on the list. So that's a lot of what it is. But again, Florida State they have not beat Clemson since 2014. So this is a huge opportunity for them.
Yeah, I still think Clemson wins this game at home. Before we jump around the SEC, Ohio State's athletic director, Gene Smith, they were all up at the Capitol Hill talking NIL. And I'm just trying to remember if I saw this correctly, Brent. Was he stating that when kids come on visits or just to visit the campus, the going rate is just, you got to give us $5,000?
Yes. Yeah. He made that statement. I'll give you a quote on this. He said, "A practice of asking a school for a fee to simply visit campus has emerged. Asking for $5,000 just to visit has become common." Now that is mind-blowing. I emphasize this in the notes here, that listen, can you imagine asking Steve Spurrier or Coach or Bear Bryant or some of the coaches from a while back, hey, I'll come visit, but you got to pay me $5,000 first. But unfortunately, in this day of NIL, that is where we are, and this has been going on. But people have really paid attention to it since Gene Smith, who is a well-respected athletic director at Ohio State, actually admitted it, and it's now in print.
Yeah, that is just baffling to me. That's crazy. Mitch on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, says Shane Cox will blame your router, your wiring, your computer. All is bull crap. It's a Cox issue, not your. I know it is. They're the ones that sent me the damn router, so it's their fault. But we're getting ready to get that fixed when I have time. Andy has a question for you, Brent, brought to you by Meldon Law. How surprised were you that the Gators dominated the Vols with only 3 seniors playing in the game?
Very. I was at that game. I had a chance to cover it. It was just an incredible performance. And I frankly think this was the kind of performance that Shane and I have been talking about that Florida was capable of doing. And that's a really good point. They had a great game plan. And they really stuck to what they are good at. That's running the ball, playing extremely good defense. I still don't think Austin Armstrong's got the credit he deserves for this. And getting a quarterback who is better than people thought, who played extremely well in that game. And look, I know that the Vols got closer, but that game, for all intents and purposes, was over at halftime. Frankly, I mean, it was total domination, and one of the best efforts that I've seen from Florida in a long time, and it certainly well-deserving raises some expectations for the rest of the year.
Yep, for sure. All right, Brent, let's go around the SEC. Obviously, let's start with Alabama. Big game in Tuscaloosa against the Ole Miss Rebels. They're going back to Jalen Milroe. I think if Alabama can get their run game going, which I know they struggle with, they can win this game. But how do you see this thing playing out, and what's going on in Tuscaloosa?
Well, they're playing kind of a quarterback roulette right now, going back and forth with different ones. They are now back to Milroe because they really just did not have hardly any success with the quarterback situation. Tyler Buckner, who comes from Notre Dame, was frankly abysmal in the game. I don't know if he'll play again. I do think Ty Simpson played well at the end of the game. But what they're doing is now, because neither quarterback really stood out that much, they're going back to Milroe, hoping something will click. They think that Milroe, and they can't use Milroe as a pocket panther. They've got to use Milroe on the edge and get him out on kind of a run-pass option type thing. And to Shane's point, Bama ran the ball well. That made a big difference. They ran for over 200 yards, and the defense played much better. This is going to be a really tough task for Alabama. They cannot get into a scoring match with Ole Miss because they can't match them. We don't know about Quinshon Judkins, how much he's going to play. Jackson Dart, I'm curious if you've seen him much, Shane, but he has improved, and he's playing better, true dual threat. The big story in this game will be Pete Golding going from Alabama to Ole Miss as the coordinator, and they're beginning to improve in this game. So yes, I mean it's a game Alabama's capable of winning, but if Milroe makes mistakes early on, what is Alabama going to do in order to either get him going or replace him?
Yeah, Jackson Dart's probably played the best at the quarterback position anybody in the league, quite honestly, yes. Right now. I think Alabama, if they fall behind by a couple scores, could be trouble for them. Alan says on Facebook Live, friends don't let friends do cable. Get you some good internet access, Shane. I don't have cable. People. I have YouTube TV, which is outstanding, but you have to have damn Wi-Fi. And as I said, I am getting rid of Cox. I don't know when I'm getting rid of Cox because you usually have to be home to do all this. I'm never home. I don't have time to sit around all day and wait on these morons. So in the meantime, we'll just do it via phone. Sorry for my rant. Arkansas, man, what was the loss to the BYU Cougars last week?
Yeah, that was a really tough loss. A lot of this is because they have not had Rocket Sanders, who is arguably one of the better backs in the league. He and Junkins, that we mentioned from Ole Miss, are two of the better backs anywhere. And BYU is a pretty good football team also. But this is a bad matchup for Arkansas. LSU is playing really well right now. I don't know if Arkansas can stop Harold Perkins, the tremendous LSU linebacker. And they finally decided to just kind of let him go. And he rushed the passer 17 times in the Mississippi State game. Now, they had a really now imagine this happening to you in the middle of the season. They've got a defensive back named Greg Brooks Jr., who unfortunately underwent emergency surgery for a brain tumor last Friday. Mm-hmm. So they removed a mass. They're waiting to see what's going on. Shane, that's terrible, but, I mean, he's okay for the moment. They got to get the results back to kind of see where they're going. But, boy, oh, boy, and I don't know if you had a chance to watch LSU or not. LSU was in midseason form against Mississippi State. Malik Neighbors caught 239 yards worth of passes. Jaden Daniels was special. 30 of 34, 361. That's hard to do in the backyard against the neighborhood kids, much less on a college field. But they were amazing. Logan Diggs continues to probably be the better of the LSU running backs. So this is a tall order for Arkansas. And by the way, Shane, did you see this note early? Arkansas has played 31 seasons in the SEC, and they've only had 7 winning SEC records.
Wow, that's interesting. I did not know that. This game, Arkansas, LSU usually played around the Thanksgiving weekend, yes. Too. It's very, very early. It's the battle for the Golden Boot or whatever they call it.
Right.
Which is so should be interesting. I like the LSU Tigers in this game. I'm getting plenty of people here telling me to switch my service. I am. Switching isn't the problem. It's if I have to be here or not. Dan has a question on Facebook Live brought to you by Mental Law. Brent, are you surprised how much the big teams in the SEC have struggled this year?
Yeah, and they really have. I mean, it's been very unusual, particularly in the West. I mean, everything's up for grabs at this point. Now, LSU's yet to lose a conference game, but obviously Alabama struggled at quarterback. A&M has had their struggles. I think particularly on defense, which is where that's coming from. Now, Auburn and A&M play this weekend. That will let us know a little bit more about what's going on there. But yes, and look, Georgia is undefeated, but they have not been great either. And I think there are a bunch of reasons for all these things. I mean, I think Georgia's just bored. Frankly, with their schedule, some of it they've had a lot of injuries, particularly at running back. So that's a good point. Doesn't mean that the league will be awful at the end of the year. It just means that a lot of the bigger teams have really struggled getting out of the gate.
A couple of texts on the Titan Mar text line. It's from an anonymous texter. Says Mertz will have better numbers in every category than Richardson other than rushing. That alone equates to a couple more wins. We should beat Kentucky, and if the team that showed up against Tennessee would have played this way in Utah, we could be undefeated. Well, we didn't play terribly that bad in Utah. It was a lot of pre-snap stuff. This is from Brett and Jack. Says, love our new freshman safety Castell. Just another example of Billy being a great evaluator of talent. Agreed. Daryl says, good morning, guys. Brent loses to Auburn. Jumbo seats get a lot hotter. I definitely.
Oh, yeah. Look, and they're not happy with this situation at all. The Miami game raised a lot of eyebrows as far as what they might be able to do. Now, look, if they put it all together, at some point they could hit a hot streak. I could see that. Connor Weigman and these wide receivers were very good. As we mentioned a minute ago to Daryl's question, they've got to solidify that defense, and they have been struggling there. But this would be a good test for them, frankly, with Auburn coming in and Auburn really hadn't played anybody. They almost lost to Cal. They looked better last week. I think Thorne at quarterback is, and they've got this 2-quarterback system going with Robbie Ashford. It's worked so far. Shane, I don't know if 2-quarterback system has worked for the whole year, but it has at this point. So yes, there's no question. I think if A&M has a 7-5, 8-4, it very well may be Jimbo's last. But we will throw this caveat in there that buyout is like $78 million, but they've got the money to deal with it.
Yes, they do. And if they have a 7 or 8 win year, I think he's gone. That's just my gut feeling.
Yeah.
The Gators host Charlotte, game they'll win. Missing a couple of starters due to the little altercation at the end of the year. But we've had multiple text and Facebook and YouTube questions here regarding when the depth chart came out yesterday. Kamari Wilson was a highly rated kid last year, was not even listed. Brett, you got any information on him? I don't.
I mean, I checked. I got that. I actually got that question last night, and there's a lot about that we don't quite understand. I mean, what I got from and I texted a beat writer about it, that he had a tackle against McNeese State, that he played last week. It was either on defense or special teams, but he didn't do much. Now, I'm not saying he's on or off because, frankly, we don't know that. It may not know that until Saturday, but there's enough questions about that and enough, I won't, not mystery, but there's enough unknown about what's happening with him right now. But hopefully that will be cleared up in the next day or two.
Gotcha. On YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, Shane 1178 says, looking at it the wrong way, if the defense played as well last year as it has this year, the Gators will be much better with Richardson and this defense playing. Mertz cannot throw the deep ball. Mertz throws the ball fine. We just haven't thrown it deep. He throws, right. Again, I had to sit on a show yesterday and tell people that Graham Mertz has a better arm than myself, Danny Werfel, and majority of Steve Spurrier's quarterbacks. He's got plenty of arm strength. But again, the defense this year is better because you have a new coordinator, but you've got an entire new defense.
Yeah.
It's new players. And so I disagree with his comments there. Graham is a legitimate quarterback. From the leadership standpoint, knowing what to do. Anthony was a fine quarterback in his way, but he doesn't do a lot of the little things that it takes to be a really good quarterback. He does things that regular quarterbacks can't do.
Yeah.
It just depends on what kind of quarterback you want. That's what it is.
And I can tell you this, Nick Saban will love to have Graham Mertz right now.
Oh, yes, there's no question. Michael has an interesting question here on Facebook Live. It says, Brent, does unionizing players seem to be the future, and would it be for all sports?
Well, look, it may be, and I'll be brief about this, but the reality is I'm not sure that's not where we're headed. And I think what we're going to have eventually is contracts for players. It will be NFL light. Can I use that term, Shane? That, and I'm not saying it's going to happen immediately, but and look, I know that it was it Dartmouth? I think it was actually one of the Ivy League schools that actually talked. There was an article about this, and people can Google it, about the possibility of a players' union. Now, is that going to catch on? Now, the other reality it is, if you go to contracts and you go to union, what else does that mean about other issues like a scholarship, like firing, cutting players? I mean, there are just so many things involved with that. I personally hope we don't get to there, but I think a lot of coaches would tell you in an honest, transparent moment, they think that's where we're going.
Yes, for sure. Georgia plays UAB. I don't know if people saw the comments of Trent Dilfer, who's now their head coach, saying that the SEC game is a much better environment than any Super Bowl. I would agree with that. There's no better environment in all of sports compared to the Southeastern Conference Championship game in Atlanta. There's none.
I agree.
None.
Yes.
There's no national championship game. There's no Super Bowl. I don't give a damn about the World Cup. There's nothing like the SEC championship game. All right. We know Georgia's going to win that game handily. Interesting game to me. Kentucky and Vanderbilt.
Yes.
Kentucky has just sputtered against everybody they've played so far this year.
Yeah, they have. But here's the amazing thing about it is, for the first time in more than a century, they've strung together 3 straight wins. They're looking to go 4-0 for a 3rd straight season. Now get this, Shane. The last time Kentucky enjoyed 3 consecutive 3-0 starts was from 1909 through 1911.
Good gracious! Wow.
It's been a while, has it not? But at the same time, and here's the other interesting thing. We thought that this Kentucky offense would be prolific, but against Akron, they had, to get the Shane, 49 snaps. They ran 51 plays and 61 plays in the first 2 games. They're averaging 51 offensive plays per game, which is 132 in the country. That is amazing. And the ironic thing about this game is Ray Davis, who played at Vanderbilt, will be playing for Kentucky. I don't know if you've had a chance to see him yet, but he is really playing well. Unfortunately, Vandy lost a Vanderbilt-like game last week to UNLV, 40-37, and on a field goal in the last few seconds. So they both need big wins. And I still think the Kentucky game is going to be a pivotal game for Florida. Devin Leary at quarterback. We mentioned Ray Davis. Liam Cohen is back as offensive coordinator coming from the NFL. So, yes, to your point, Kentucky-Vandy will be a very interesting game.
Yes, for sure. A game that's critical for both programs for the rest of the year, Mississippi State at South Carolina. Mississippi State's offense, they're talking about benching Will Rogers. Let me tell you something. He is a tremendous quarterback, and they have one of the worst offenses I've ever seen in college football right now.
Yeah, and I'll be brief about this, but I'd love to have you comment on this. What's happened at Mississippi State is they've gone from an air raid, which, and help me on this, Shane, a lot of the air raid is dumping the ball down to their backs, and that's basically a running play for them. But they've gone to now more of your pro style. In their first 16 plays against LSU, they gained 7 yards. So the problem is, at this point, it's been an incredible adjustment. And Will Rogers is one of the better quarterbacks in the league. As a matter of fact, when Will Rogers leaves, he will take a lot of SEC records with him. Kevin Barbay is their offensive coordinator. He's under a lot of heat. Woody Marks is a good running back for Mississippi State. But my point with this, Shane, is that is how difficult is it when you go from one style of offense that they recruited for years to doing something, I won't say totally different, but something certainly different in this pro-style attack.
Well, it's a big, big difference, but he's such a good player, and they're not even letting him throw the football. That's the problem, and their pass protection has been horrendous. And I don't know. I just feel terrible because I think Mississippi State's got some really good players. And Kevin Barbay, like I said, he was the director of football ops for Jim McElwain when he was here, and he coached a little bit under McElwain, Central Michigan. I guess he had a relationship with Zach Arnett or whatever, but they look lost. They look lost.
Yes.
Tennessee hosts the Roadrunners of San Antonio, who's a good ball club, but their quarterback, who's a really good player, has not played at all this year. I don't think he's playing in this game. They should get back on the winning track, right?
Yeah, I think so. But you're right. There are a lot of people who thought that this would be a real sandwich game for Tennessee. Frank Harris is one of the better quarterbacks in the nation. To Shane's point, he has been hurt and hasn't played a whole lot. Hopefully, he'll be able to come back. UTSA is a pretty good football team for their division, so keep that in mind. There have been a lot of Tennessee fans asking for Nico Lamaliva, their backup quarterback, and Joey Hazel was asked. He's the Tennessee offense coordinator. Did you think about going and switching quarterbacks? And the quote was, no, because it's operational problems, and Joe Milton is operating on a really high level right now. So as you can imagine, that question's been asked a lot for Volunteer fans. I mean, they've still got a good football team. I don't think it's as good as last year, and I believe they'll be probably 9-3-ish, somewhere in there. But Tennessee looking to get back on the right track against UTSA.
Do we know if Frank Harris is going to play quarterback? Because he did not play at all last week due to injury.
I've heard this more day to day, and if he can play or not. But I mean, he has been there. I think it's at least 6 years. Shane, I saw a story. I think it's the Miami tight end that is looking to play a 9th year. Have you ever heard of that before?
That poor guy doesn't want to go out into the real world. He wants to stay in college.
He really does.
That's hilarious. All right, Brent, last thing before we get you out of here. Obviously, we touched on it earlier, but a huge game at Death Valley up in Clemson, South Carolina. I mean, this is a game. I mean, can you imagine? Just think about this. If things go sideways for Alabama and Clemson Saturday, both of them in week 4 could have 2 losses. I mean, just think about that.
Yeah.
But Clemson does not lose at home.
No. And look, Will Shipley's one of the better running backs in the nation. Now, Cade Klubnik has been okay. 8 touchdowns, 2 picks. But look, I mean, I still think probably Clemson has as good a roster, maybe even better than FSU. But FSU hopefully got a lot of problems out of their system. Their fans at least think that way in the Boston College game. I mean, they could have lost to Boston College for people who didn't see that game. Jordan Travis was hurt in the game. He came back. He is okay. But again, when you're in a game like this, the team that has the better defense, which Clemson has the top 10 defense, and FSU defense is good too, and the better running game oftentimes wins. So, but as we mentioned, this is a demon that FSU needs to exorcise. And again, without divisions, keep this in mind, there's a chance FSU and Clemson could play again at the end of the year in the championship game too. So, and Shane, I do want to throw out real quick, Missouri plays Memphis in St. Louis. We don't have time to get into a lot, but Luther Burden is a tremendous player from Missouri, but and Brady Cook had a hyperextended knee. That's a big game for both of those teams. And again, Missouri won on the 61-yard field goal on the last play of the game last week.
Yep, Missouri can go undefeated if they can beat the Memphis Tigers. Brent, great stuff as always, my man. Have a great weekend. It's going to be a fun one, a lot of good games to watch, and we'll recap them all next week.
Can't wait, Shane. Thanks much. Take care.
That's Brent Beaird, our college football analyst and Heisman Trophy voter. Join us on the Titan Tomorrow Hotline. Going to take a quick timeout. Come back. We'll be joined by marvelous Marty Pallman from the Prep Zone on the Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup. You're watching and listening to PodUp with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Be right back.
We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury, and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Campus USA, put some star power to work in your financial life with Campus USA Credit Union. Dave & Buster's, eat, drink, play, watch. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Silverback Concrete, Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, Radware, F45, Quality Plumbing. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Q Billiards and Sports Bar. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Attention all Gator fans, Meldon Law is giving away a chance to experience the Florida-Georgia game like never before. 2-night stay at the Hilton on the River, dinner at Ruth Chris Steakhouse, 2 premium tickets to the game, and a football signed by Coach Billy Napier, and much more. Go to the Meldon Law Facebook page and look for the VIP experience for 2. Good luck and go Gators!
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Ruse Ogre State Farm Office is a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visit ograinsurance.com. Give them a call at 352-240-1779. Real quick before we get to Marty Pallman, Florida Charlotte sold out in the swamp on a Saturday night. That's good to hear. All right, let's go to the Titan MO Hotline. We're joined by the PrepZone.com's marvelous Marty Pallman. Good morning, Marty. How you doing, buddy?
Morning, Shane. Florida Charlotte sold out. Wow, the Gator fans are really coming back, man.
I just got the email live right here while we're on PodUp with Matthews in the morning. Came straight from the University of Florida. So that's good news. Marty, let's start real quick, briefly. Volleyball, obviously, northeast Florida area has some really good volleyball programs. What have you seen so far this year?
A chance to see Gainesville, and right now I'd say if you're looking at volleyball teams in Alachua County, Gainesville is the team to watch this year. I mean, they have 3 Division I players. Brooklyn Teeler is a USC commit, Southern Cal, USC. And they also have another commit, the Mercer, Mimi Davis, and also Charlotte Gravely, who's going to Columbia. So they got 3 D1 players right there, and also a pretty good start. I had a chance to see them play Santa Fe a week ago, and Santa Fe 2-time defending state champs, but they're having a little bit of a rough season. They lost pretty much everybody from last year, including their the Miss Volleyball in the state of Florida. So it's kind of a tough year for Santa Fe, and GHS actually swept them in that game at the Purple Palace. And then earlier this week, Gainesville beat PK Young twice. So I would say right now GHS is the team in the area. They've already beaten Buchholz. As far as in Alachua County, that's the team to beat. And we'll look at it as the season goes on, some of the 1A teams to watch as well, the smaller classifications. But as far as we look at Alachua County right now, I'd say Gainesville High is pretty much it. And they've had a good year to this point. We still have another month until district play.
All right, let's switch over to high school football. Let's start with the smaller classifications. Obviously, I believe Hawthorne and Williston are still undefeated. You still got Union County. I think they have 1 loss, but they're a very good football team. Just talk about some of those, how good of programs we have in our area. I guess, is it 1R? Did I say it correctly?
Yeah. So it's 1A, but yeah, they call it 1R, the rural classification now. So, Hawthorne, and they just keep rolling. And last week they figured to get a pretty good test from South Sumter, and they did. They were down at the half, 21-14 were the Hornets, and then they came out, took the opening kickoff in the second half back for a touchdown, and that was it. They outscored South Sumter 27-0 in the second half to win 41-21. So they're now 4-0, and it's not a program or a team that looks like it's going to be settling or really slowing down anytime soon. This just they're on a roll, and now they've won 14 straight, or actually 16 straight, going back to through last year's state championship team. And then on the other side, you mentioned Williston. Williston also off to an undefeated start, still at 4-0. They've got a big test this week against another undefeated team at Fort White. They got to go to Fort White against Demetric Jackson's undefeated Fort White Indians. So Williston will get a test, although it would seem right now, if you're looking at 1R, and you said Union County too. Union County only with one loss, and that was they went on the road in the Panhandle, lost to Walton in overtime. But otherwise, I think you're right. Those two, Hawthorne and Williston, if you're looking for teams that are going to contend for a state title, those two are going to probably end up playing each other at some point. And Union County also will fit in there. So somebody will get out of there and possibly win a state title, but two of them aren't. So it'll be interesting to see as the season goes on and we get into the playoffs and the rural classification.
We got a text on the Titan Mark text line from Joe in Baldwin. He says, Marty, are you surprised at the start that Bowles has had?
Well, I am, and I'm not. But the funny thing about them is their schedule has been brutal. I mean, they played St. Augustine, who's undefeated, lost to them in overtime. They played Mandarin, who's undefeated and rolling up there in Jacksonville. And Mandarin actually had to score in the last minute to beat Bowles. And then Bowles lost to an undefeated team in Coffee County, Georgia. And then last week they came back and beat Trinity Christian. So, I mean, Bowles is 1-3, but they're a pretty good 1-3, honestly. And they could have been 0-4, but they did pull the upset over Trinity Christian. I don't know if anybody thought they would beat Trinity last week. So a little surprised at the fact that they're 1-3, but now the more I look at their schedule, I think, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. They lost 4 games last year in the regular season, and they still ended up going to the state semis. They were 1 game away from the championship game. So despite the fact they're off to this start, don't count Bowles out. They'll still make a run at some point.
Yeah, no doubt. It's very similar. Let's talk about another Trinity Catholic down in Ocala. I've looked at their schedule and I talked to Brent. I mean, they could go 2-8 or 3-7 and win the state championship with their schedule.
He could, and he likes to play. Coach Brantley likes to play up. He does, and they're. Last year they made it all the way to the state title game, and then I really thought they were going to win that, and they kind of laid an egg there in Tallahassee against the team from Naples, and I think Coach Brantley was surprised too how that turned out. They lost that game 21-3, but boy, it seemed like this year he's made sure that they're going to be ready because, yeah, their schedule. They've already played that team from Tampa last week, Carroll Day, who came back and beat them in OT, and. Yeah, it's been a tough start to the season. They beat GHS, which, I mean, I know that's not saying a whole lot right now, but they did get a win against GHS. And then they opened up with Clearwater Central Catholic, who played for a state title last year. And as you said, they got Rains this week in Jacksonville. Then they play Florida High in Tallahassee, who's a state runner-up from last year. Yeah, this schedule is something. And then the only break I see in here is PK Young at the end of October because they even closed the season with Buchholz at home. So it's something. They're going to go to Cincinnati in October to play St. Xavier. So yeah, you're right. They could go 2-8 and win the state title, no problem. In that they play in the 1F classification.
Yeah. We got a text on the Titan Mark text line from an anonymous texter. Says, Shane, I saw that Creed already caught a 50-yard touchdown pass at Mississippi State. I like Creed over Andy Jean. Why'd Creed lead the class with Florida? He committed when Mike Leach was there. Creed has not really played much since that first game. Their offense is not very good right now. Let's be honest, it's bad. Chad asked on Facebook Live, who was the best player out of Pascagoula in high school on my high school football team? Me, T-Buck, or Kez. Yes, I was the quarterback on the state championship team. I mean, Terrell was a tremendous player. He only played defensive back, though. Kez only played receiver. We had nobody go both ways, but we were loaded. We would beat a lot of teams. There's no question about that. All right, let's talk about in this area, the big schools. Obviously, Buchholz has a ton of transfers. Andy had a question on Facebook Live. Will Miles Graham ever take a snap as a running back at Florida? I'm going to say no. However, he is running all over folks here in the state of Florida after moving down from Georgia. He's a man among boys. I mean, he is when you go to high school football games, you can kind of say, okay, That dude is a different dude, and that's why he's a 4 or 5 star. You can see it immediately. A lot of times, there is no question when Miles Graham, number 2, walks out of the tunnel or whatever through the gate at a Buchholz game, he's a different dude. I don't think he'll play running back. I think he's slated. He wants to play linebacker. But Buchholz lost their starting running back. I don't know for how long, so they put him over there, and he's run for 1,000,000 yards. Can you talk about him a little bit, Marty?
Yeah, you're right, Shane. I don't know if he's going to play running back at UF either. I feel like he's a 4-star linebacker, and as it is, I think Florida needs those. But yeah, you're right. It's something that it's like Buchholz can just plug in guys. I mean, you mentioned Creed Whittemore. He wasn't even a quarterback when he started in high school. He was a receiver who moved to quarterback because they had an injury to their quarterback. And 4 years later, the guy set records and he's Mr. Football in Florida. And now he's at Mississippi State. But Miles Graham, I mean, yeah, he's been something. 204 yards last week on 9 carries, 97-yard touchdown run. And he just also had 2 other touchdowns of 25 yards and 67 yards. Buchholz won that game 49-20 against Creekside. So, yeah, Miles Graham has been something to watch the last couple of weeks. Quentin Cutler, their normal running back, is out, and they don't know when he's going to be back. And right now, hey, Chuck Bell may not worry about that because the way Miles Graham's running, that offense seems to be running even better with Graham in the backfield.
Yeah, sure. Nat says here on Facebook Live, PK doesn't have enough players to play. They've won 2 games, though, right, under Willie Jackson.
Yeah, they're 2-1. And, I mean, you could say they didn't play much competition. They beat Father Lopez week 1, but Mount Dora Christian isn't too bad. They beat them by 2 points in week 2, but they did lose to Union County last week. And the schedule gets a little tougher because tonight or tomorrow night they host Hawthorne, so that's going to be probably kind of rough for them. And, yeah, I know their second home game of the season becomes against Hawthorne, and then yeah, it is going to get a little more challenging for Willie Jackson's team, and that was the thought before the season was, are they even going to be able to field the team? But he has, and they've been competing so far, and I think that's basically the goal this year is to compete, I'm sure, and they're going to try to do that. Yeah, actually, they play Santa Fe next week, so that's a chance to get a win maybe against, a team that's also winless in the area. By the way, tonight I'll be at Citizens Field, our game. I do have the game online on Main Street Daily News. Santa Fe and GHS, somebody's got to win.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I know. It's been a rough time for those 2 programs.
Yeah, it really has. All right, before we get you out of here, Marty, you got a text on the Titan Mark text line from Jackson. He says, Marty, what's going on with Vanguard and Columbia? It seems like Columbia is struggling this year.
Well, Vanguard is rolling. I mean, they've actually had some close games, really, to this point of the season. They got by Leesburg last week, who was unbeaten. And also they beat Lake Minneola. They beat a team from Colorado week 1 called Erie. It was a little kind of a strange way to start the year down in Ocala. But, they kind of come and go with Fred Gaskin. He's the guy to watch. Their quarterback, he's another guy who's committed as a linebacker, I believe. So he's not really going to play running back at the next level, but I don't know. He has been their leader as well. And then as far as Columbia, yeah, another problem with they're having is their schedule has been pretty brutal. I mean, they opened with Buchholz, then they played Madison County last week. That's the issue. They got Trinity Christian this week, who's coming off a loss to Bowles. So I don't know if it's really that Columbia is having issues or that the schedule's that hard, because as the season goes on, they're probably going to get better. And I think we'll see that as, we'll see this week if they can get it going in a game against Trinity Christian in Lake City.
Oh, that's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Twan says Columbia lost Jaden Robinson. That's probably a big reason why. I don't know who Jaden Robinson is. Do I know who he is?
He's he's a receiver. And that is a big loss for them. They also played DeLand, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, their schedule, like I said, they played Trinity, then it gets a little better. Yeah. Sorry.
They lost to Madison County last week, right?
They did, yeah. And then that's happened before. That's not that surprising, really, to me, but I think some folks were surprised up there as Madison beat them up in Madison. But yeah, the looking down the stretch though, Columbia's schedule gets a little better, but they do still have Bowles and Vero Beach on that slate. So.
Yeah, Nat says it would be a mistake not to let him try at running back, referring to Miles Graham. Derek Henry wanted to be a Gator and play running back. Most champs told him to be a linebacker. But Miles wants to be a linebacker. That's what he is slated at. He's just a better player than everybody else, and so they put him at tailback and he outruns and runs over folks. Oh, Jaden's the linebacker that's at Florida. That's right. I know who you're talking about now.
Jaden, he's at Florida.
That's right. That's my fault. But Columbia usually has dudes. They're just struggling this year for whatever reason. All right, Marty, you're on the call tonight for GHS Santa Fe. Are you doing a game Friday night? Are you still the voice of the Bishop Kenny Crusaders?
Yes, sir. Every Friday night. Last week I went to Orlando. They played Bishop Moore, but this week I'll be over in Jacksonville. West Nassau Warriors from Callahan are coming in to Bishop Kenny, and Mike Rideout will have the call tomorrow night of Vanguard Buchholz, so he gets the big one. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch, those two teams. I'll be there tonight, though, as you said, for the Somebody's Got to Win Bowl between GHS and Santa Fe. So somebody will get their maybe one win of the season. I hope I'm wrong about that, but that's tonight, 7 o'clock kickoff at Citizens Field.
All right, last question just came in on Facebook Live, brought to you by Metal Law. Cedric wants to know, are Santa Fe problems lack of talent or coaches?
That's a good question. I think it's a lack of talent right now. I don't know if their coaching staff's that bad. I think they've.
Well, the problem is all their good players have transferred to other schools, either Bradford or Buchholz.
Well, that's right. They do not have the talent, and why they've had a hard time keeping players there, I don't know, but they have. I mean, this is a program that used to, win state titles, and now they have won one game in 3 seasons, and they've had 2 coaches. Joe Zemansky, who's there now, is another Santa Fe grad who's been around. He's coached different places, so in the area, which I feel like he can get it turned around, but it looks like it's going to be a little bit longer rebuild than you think. And I think the same thing is true at GHS. The GHS. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, the problem is the rules now. And Buchholz has been the most established program because of the stability of Mark Whittemore when he was here. Everybody knew he was not going anywhere because he had so many kids coming through the program. Now Chuck Bell's taken over an established program. So majority of the Buchholz players have transferred in from surrounding schools, their best players, that's just the rules. There's nothing wrong with that. And so the schools like the Santa Fe's, the Gainesville Highs, the East Sides, if they're not winning games, those better players aren't going to sit around and try to help build the program back up. They're going to go to a program where they're winning. That's the way it works nowadays.
Yeah, you're right. And exactly. And, if you look through high school football recently in Alachua County, it's been, East Side dominated for a little while, then GHS did. Buchholz was kind of behind, but then Mark Whittemore changed all that. He really did by coming in here in 11, 12 years of just really good play, getting to the state semifinals the last few years. And you're right, Buchholz is the team, and they are the team that's getting players. And I don't know if that's going to change anytime soon because Chuck Bell's not going to do anything differently. And the other thing I was going to say about GHS is I think if you look at them, they lost their top 2 players before last year to Williston, and I think that really seemed to stunt their growth last year. And this year they need guys. I mean, Ian Scott's got the same kind of issue that Joe Zemansky does at Santa Fe. That's a big rebuild. It's going to take a while, it looks like, and you can tell they're playing better. Just too many mistakes, though. They can't score. That's their issue right now. They need to find some athletes, and that seems to be the problem, especially on the offensive side.
Yep. Marty, great stuff as always, buddy. Have a good call tonight, and we'll talk to you soon, bud.
All right, Shane. Good to talk to you as always. Thank you.
Yep. That's Marty Pallman from the PrepZone.com. Join us on the Titan Tomorrow hotline. This Day in Sports brought to you by our good friends at Campus USA Credit Union. Put some star power to work in your financial life with Campus USA Credit Union. In 1988, Suriname swimmers Anthony Nesty wins the 100-meter butterfly at the Seoul Olympics. He becomes their first gold medal winner and the first Black to win an individual Olympic swimming gold medal, and he is your University of Florida swim coach. He was here when I was here. So that's This Day in Sports, brought to you by our good friends at Campus USA Credit Union. Hope you guys enjoyed today's program. Want to thank Brent Beaird and Marvelous Marty Pallman from the Prep Zone. Give us a little rundown of high school sports on the Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup. That's going to do it for today's program, folks. Have a great day, and we'll see you same place, same time tomorrow. Take care.